So, good morning, everyone. Lovely to be with you. Lovely to see you in this morning session. And we're expecting quite a hot day here in Germany. So, I'm happy to enjoy the cool morning with you. And yeah, we're going to dive into the second aspect of our compassion exploration this morning, one which I find very important and insightful. We're going to look into all the misunderstandings, all the entanglements which will naturally arise when we dive into an exploration, a practice of compassion. Yeah. So just very quickly, the framework. And there are quite a few people on this morning, so I wonder whether there are any issues with the computer. I can see only 19 of you, but maybe figure that out. If you experienced any problems logging in, please let me know. For the rest of the framework, you might know that I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes now and have quite a lot of topics to share, so I will probably take up 20 minutes time. And then we are going to do a meditation on this, which is for your practice, and you can explore that further and deeper as you wish. And then we're going to have time to share questions and insights and reflections and maybe challenges with the practice we did or anything I said this morning in the last 20 minutes. And this is our rough guideline for this morning. And after this, I just want to remind us quickly of the fact of donation-based sessions we're offering here on Sangha Life. So if you wish, after the session, there will be a link and you can support Sangha Life and myself with whatever is appropriate for you to give to these sessions and this framework. Okay, lovely. Let's get started with our exploration. So this morning session is called Compassion's False Friends. And as we said yesterday, there can be a lot of misunderstandings around the concept of compassion. And this is because if compassion arises, it usually doesn't come alone. It comes interwoven, intertwined with other dynamics, other perspectives. And sometimes with a perspective, it's like this, that even a slight shift, like a slight lean towards the right or the left, will have a deep impact on what we see and what we perceive and what we feel. And therefore it's so important to learn. Part of a practice of compassion is to learn to say, oh, well, this is compassion and this is extra. This feels like care, but it's mixed up, like it's colored almost with a shade of, let's say, irritation, a shade of worry, and can I differentiate that out? It's not that the one has to go and the other has to stay, but just to see what is working at the moment, what is working. Because often when we can't quite distinguish that, it's that compassion practice feels like a burden and a duty. Just imagine that compassion is constantly mixed up with worry for you, or with a feel of duty. As soon as I resonate with the suffering of others, there comes this little signpost which says, do something. You have to take care of that. You have to give your time, your energy, your attention, because the suffering with another comes always almost like with something like a command. Now you have to, if you recognize it, you have to do something about it. And then it becomes very heavy. So to notice that and to then gives us the ability to respond appropriately, because a lot of those mechanisms which come with compassion, which intermingle with compassion, there will be attempts of your heart mind to deal with the suffering of others or deal with your own suffering. It's not that you sit there and decide to be mean or to be fearful or whatever. It's the attempt of your heart mind to respond to this intense thing called suffering of either the other or ourselves or the world in general. And saying, dear heart mind, I see your good attempts and your well-wishing for me, yeah, for our well-being here. But I don't really think that works. I don't really think that is supportive. Summer, as we said yesterday. And then we can gently calm our heart minds, change perspective on a very slow, tiny baby steps. Yeah. But the first attempt, and I wish to give the input this morning for it, is to actually see what is going on. So, what are those entanglements? Okay, thank you, Heidi, for letting me know. So people just, I wonder whether George is somewhere. Heidi said that our daily meditation page was not working at all. Okay, I wonder what that was about. And I hope people will find their way in. Luckily, everything will be recorded for the others. Okay, so a couple of things to distinguish. We're going to just work through a list today, and bear with me, and then please take this list into your daily lives and into your practice later, and just learn to figure out what is going on for you. So the first pair, the first entanglement, is something we spoke about yesterday already. It's a concept of compassion, which feels heavy and burdensome, and actually this more open concept of caring. Compassion actually means, in Latin at least, to suffer with someone. Yeah, passione is the suffering, and com means together with something. So suffering with someone. Yeah, and I think from a Christian background, this might be a very familiar approach to us, just to say, okay, someone is suffering, and I'm going so closely into empathy and so closely into their suffering. What we do is we create two who are suffering, at least two who are suffering. And with it goes the idea of that if someone is suffering, or if there is some suffering within me, it's not okay to be okay. It's not okay to be okay. So we are creating, out of a sense of duty, out of a sense of responsibility, we are creating two, either of an inability to keep a healthy distance towards that suffering, or out of a sense of duty, we are creating two who are suffering. But is this, and I remind myself regularly in my own practice, is this actually supportive to anyone? Is co-suffering supportive to myself? Clearly not, because it drains my energy, it activates unhelpful thoughts, unhelpful behavior. And is it helpful? Is co-suffering helpful to the one who suffers? Is it of any benefit? And I need to remind myself, no, it's not. It's not what the other needs either. And I love the concept of care. Yeah, I love the concept of care, a more caring approach rather than a co-suffering approach to compassion. To say we don't need to suffer both. Yeah, actually, even if no one of us suffers, care works perfectly well. So maybe we can. This is a first reminder. This approach of suffering, this approach of compassion, which I currently have, is it creating two who suffer, or is there a sense of caring still involved? And this brings us to the next point, which is worry and sorrow. Very, very often, compassion will activate a sense of worry and sorrow, or we even completely misunderstand these two. Yeah, we equate them. Same. Compassion and worry and sorrow are the same. I want you to remind you of this just very basic wish and intention of care, which we talked about yesterday. May you be well. Yeah. May you be well. And even this very basic wish of may you be well can spark thoughts of worry and sorrow. Yeah, but yes, but this person yes, but what if? Yeah, yes, but, and you see that the touch of the suffering of the other in the heart mind can spark thoughts, can spark all kinds of additions, interpretations, stories, memories, yeah, and to keep good care of that. Very similar to our other meditation practices is to rest with this wish of may you be well, May you be well. And to notice how the mind quickly runs off in thought. Yeah, and why does it do that? I said it earlier, the mind wants to fix, and the mind wants to make safe, and the mind wants to repair, and the mind wants to find solutions. That's its job, kind of. Yeah, it's only doing its job, but at times doing its job is not what it is needed right now. So take a good care of when the thoughts can't stop, when the worrying and the sorrowing can't stop. One of a couple of reasons might be in the background. One thing is that we often feel so helpless and we often feel so small in contact with the suffering. Yeah, we can't actually do a lot for the other. Maybe we did a lot for the other. Yeah, and all things which can be done are done at a certain point. Yeah, or we don't know the solution, or we offer the solution and the other doesn't want to take it, whatever it is. And we can come very often when we confront suffering, when we meet suffering, our own or the suffering of others, the moment where we feel helpless, where there is nothing to do for us. Yeah, and this is a critical moment because this is where worry often starts, because out of a sense of love and care and kindness and responsibility for the other, thinking about the problem, worrying about the other feels like the small humble act of care and loyalty we can still do. We feel like if we draw away from the other and stop worrying and stop thinking and stop having sorrows about them, we disengage. Yeah, our worry is the continuation of a sense of care for them. And I love to deepen our compassion practice because then we can unburden the mind to say, I stay with the sense of care. May you be well. Yeah, may you be well. And I don't know how to do that. And I don't know how it will play out. And I don't have a solution to offer. But I can rest with this simple sensation of may you be well. And I can do that. I can do that for myself as well. I might not know what brings things together in place. I might not know whether that plan works out or what comes tomorrow. But I can rest with my hand on my heart and say, may you be well. Yeah, I don't have to have the solution right now. I don't have to figure it out right now, but may I be well. Yeah. So sorrow and worry can come out of a sense of feeling guilty. Yeah, we keep contact through sorrowful thought, because letting go feels like I'm dropping our sense of responsibility or duty. And sometimes it's just that. Yeah, sometimes there is a child, or there is a patient, or there is a colleague, or there is a loved one, a partner we're meant to care for. Yeah, we're meant to care for in this relationship. And it feels like our responsibility and our duty to keep on worrying and to keep on sorrowing, because this is part of my role and part of my identity to that person. Can I notice that? And can I actually acknowledge that this is just not productive, not helpful at the moment? And come back real in to just compassion. We're going to talk about more active ways of compassion as well. Of course, there are things which can and need to be done. Yeah, but you will know as much as I do that we come to a point very often where there isn't actually something to be done. Way too overwhelmed, or way too drained of energy and concentration and focus to actually do something. And this is the moment we rein in the mind and come back to this very basic sense of resting in care, resting in compassion. So this being one aspect and one way which our mind can try to deal with the touch of suffering. The other one is equally as interesting. Yeah, it's a sense of anger, frustration, and control. Our heart minds are touched with suffering, and that feels uncomfortable. Yeah, that very often feels uncomfortable. If the supportive, calming, soothing balm of compassion is not fully there, the pang of suffering, our own or that of others, it feels uncomfortable. Yeah. And of course, the heart mind will then try to avoid these unpleasant states, say, oh, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to be in touch with that. So we try to avoid these unpleasant states. And one way to avoid these, some just run off, yeah. And you might have had these conversations where you shared a bit of your suffering or your challenges, and the other just was gone, like either blended out completely, yeah, like changed the topic. I have this in conversations where I share something and the other looks at you and then just changes the topic. And where that earlier made me like tended to irritate me, I can now tell myself, well, maybe their heart mind tries to protect them from being in conversation with me on this uncomfortable topic by just switching the topic. Yeah, can't handle that, don't know how to deal with that. I just talk about the weather tomorrow. Like that is easier to handle, like this human thing called life with all its challenges. And the other way sometimes a heart mind responds, other than ignoring and distracting, is to try to control the situation. Yeah. I try to get control of a situation. I come up with a solution. I come up with a plan. And things need to go this way, and plan with 3 steps, A, B, C. And if you do this, yeah, if you do this, everything will be all right. And we can stop feeling these yucky feelings which your suffering creates within me. Yeah. So the control and the push with that is a response to being touched by the uncomfortable feeling of suffering there. And if we don't respond accordingly, or if the other doesn't respond accordingly to our super lovely plan how quickly overcome these feelings of suffering, anger and frustration might arise. Yeah, anger and frustration might arise. And I believe that very often, we very often are surprised by how much anger and frustration can come up when someone is suffering close to us, that we want to be compassionate. But what is actually underlying that is a sense of overwhelm. Our heart doesn't know how to handle that, and it doesn't know how to handle those feelings arising with it, and the pain and the discomfort arising with it, and the uncertainty arising with it. And out of not knowing how to handle that, it goes into control, and then if that doesn't work, it goes into anger and frustration. Yeah. So there is something to take care in the inner. Yeah. If anger and frustration arises, a very lovely reminder almost to say, okay, something in the inner does not have the capacity to hold that at the moment. I need to take care of that. And this is part of what I said yesterday. It's compassion flows out and it flows in and it flows out. And in order to be compassionate with you, I need to take care of this heart because it can't hold that at the moment. Oh, poor dear thing. Yeah. Too small a vessel at the moment. Let me calm you, let me soothe you, and then I can return to the other. And you see how almost that is a swaying movement of compassion. Great. And bear with me. Number 3. Compassion gets intermingled with an identity. Yeah. We create identity, self, as the Buddha said. And it often can be the identity of the helper, the one who wants to help and care. Because sometimes we feel at our best when we can help and support and manage and fix things for others. This role can give us a deep sense of agency and of power and of presence, and that feels good. Yeah, sometimes suffering feels unpleasant, as I said before, and sometimes if we have the feeling of that applies to my talents and to my skills and to my strengths, we might actually feel a sense of agency and power, helping others. Some of us have their jobs based on this set of skills and talents. And it's wonderful if you do so, but can you drop that? At the end of the day, can you drop that? Or do you need to reify this role over and over again and find someone to help in order for you to feel good? Feel good about yourself. And sometimes it's that we can do that very, very well for others and poorly for ourselves. So we almost need to reestablish that role because the inner suffering is so unpleasant and we don't know how to deal with that we quickly come back to the role in order to feel good about ourselves. So there is something to take care of and have an eye upon. And some of us, and that is suffering as well, have been taught in the past that their care, their actions of care, their presence of care is their currency. Yeah, the currency with which they pay for to be in connection, to be in relationship, to be worthy of contact. Yeah, as long as you care, you're accepted, you're welcome, you're warmly received. And we have a little fear about dropping that call to say, I'm not in the role of the helper, I'm not in the role of the caregiver at this moment. Yeah, there need to be other ways in which we relate with each other than that, and maybe being caring for you. Yeah, and this is another form of suffering, because it keeps us in this identity, it keeps us trapped. And it might be a way to explore, to say, how can I relate differently to other people? Yeah, rather than being paying through caring. Which doesn't say that caring is wrong or there's something off with it, but it's this being trapped in it and not being able to be someone else, or being free from that, which is the opposite of liberation. Yeah. And now finally we have one more aspect, and that is an important one. It's pity versus compassion. Yeah, what is actually the difference between pity and compassion, or pity in a sense of care? And I find one way to distinguish between these two is how we look at the one who is suffering, ourselves or the other one. How do we look at them? Pity defines the other by their suffering. It says, oh, you are the one who is suffering. You are the one with this challenge, this problem. And it becomes their role, and it becomes who they are, and it becomes their identity. You think, oh, you poor thing. And that would be, I think, a wonderful sum up of pity. You poor thing. Yeah, that person is most probably much more than their suffering. Yeah, they have this little aspect in their lives, or this big aspect in their lives. But even if it's a big aspect in their life, there is more to them, and there is more to their life. And it's the same with us. If we fall into self-pity, this is who we are, and this is all of our lives. Yeah, and this defines everything, and it defines the perspective on the world and on all of our relationships and of who we are. This is the perspective of self-pity. Yeah, and oh, I poor thing, because this thing is in my life. Everything else needs to step back. Everything else is out of perspective. Yeah. And pity does another thing. It has little trust in the capacities of the others, in the abilities of the others, in their agency, in the responsibility they can hold for this suffering. Yeah. Pity comes with this feeling of, oh, you poor thing, and ... you're not able to manage that. ... you don't know how to handle that. Yeah. There is a loss of respect and belittling. Yeah. There is little belief in the agency to say. Compassion would maybe say, yeah, this is hard, and I see that. I would be challenged too. And may you be well on your path of working through this, and may you learn how to ask for support and learn how to ask for help with this. But there is a supportive sense, and I trust you'll be able to handle that. I wish for you even. I wish for you to be able to handle that, to work with that, to learn from that. And I'd be happy to be part of that solution. But compassion keeps the respect, the wholeness of the personhood for the other. How often is voicing our challenges and voicing our unpleasantness and voicing our suffering connected to, okay, but if you have this problem, you are giving me permission to judge. You're giving me permission to tell you what to do. You're giving me permission to say that you are poor or weak or whatever. Yeah, and I find that heartbreaking in our society. Every one of us has sufferings in their lives, and we can't share them because out of a fear of being belittled and being pitied and being victimized. Whereas we can say, well, suffering belongs to this human life. Yeah, it won't go away, it hasn't gone away, and it will not go away for any of us. So can we stop victimizing each other to saying and normalize suffering? Yeah, to say, oh wow, that is challenging, and I would have a hard time to go through that. Now, what do you want me? How do you want me to support you? What's your plan? Yeah, what do you want me to sit with you and just listen? Do you want me to hold the space for you? Do you want me to think about solutions with you? What do you need? And give agency back to the other. It's not a weak person just because there is something off. And pity takes this respect, it takes this agency, it takes this personhood away from the other. Whereas compassion is, the Buddha would say, onward leading. Compassion is saying, yeah, I hold you with that. I hold you within that process. And then we see the next things arising from that. So, if we go into meditation right now, and we're going to practice with an image of another who's suffering, I just want us to root in a sense of well-being and calmness and soothing. And then we're going to bring up an image of someone in your life or in your past who had some amount of suffering. Please do not choose in the beginning the hardest case of suffering you can imagine. That is something for when the vessel of compassion is bigger. Yeah. And then I just want you to be in touch with that and just see what arises with that. It's very natural for things to arise. It's part of our compassion practice to work through those things which arise together with compassion. And just to put the words back into your mind, it can be pity, and that would be normal. And it can be the identity of the helper. So who? What task does that give to me? Yeah. What will I do about that? It can be anger and frustration or an attempt to control that unpleasantness. Or it could be a sense of worry and sorrow. Or just compassion. Compassion in its negative interpretation of, oh no, now I'm suffering with you. I fell into the same deep hole as you are. So have a look at these when we practice in a moment. Okay. So find yourself a comfortable position. And as I said, we're not hurrying into compassion. We're not stumbling into compassion. We're well rooting ourselves and grounding ourselves first. So arrive here after all those words I just spoke. Many words. Maybe too many. Who knows? Feet on the ground, sitting bones on the chair, on the cushion, or even lying down. You're very much welcome to lie down if you want to. And just drop the words. The heart mind takes in what it can digest right now, and all the rest is for later, maybe for never. Liberate yourself of the words. Or maybe feeling the breath waving through the body. I'll just see whether there is any possibility somewhere in the breath body where the breath touches, evokes physical sensations, to make a little more room. Is there a possibility to soften something so that the breath can move easier? All those lovely exhalations are invitations to soften something in the body. Maybe not totally, maybe it's not possible to totally relax. Maybe we begin with just one layer of tension. And allow yourself to ground well and to be in contact with the earth. Anytime before you try to open your heart compassionately. That is part of the compassion practice, is this rooting, this earthing, the stabilizing and the soothing of the body and the heart and the mind. Allow your breath, if you like breath practice, to be like a very soothing wave through the body. Gently stroking, caressing over all those maybe a little agitated and tense places, not lingering there, not working with them, not pushing, pulling, poking, just very gently caressing, stroking, touching, and then continuing. And now there is the option of either continue to soothe and calm and nourish. There would be nothing wrong with that. Maybe that's what you need this morning. Or you bring up either some person in your life or maybe in your past, which is some degree of challenge in their life. Or maybe your own present challenge. Please don't choose something which is overwhelming, which is shocking the heart mind into agitation too much. And just maybe having the idea of sitting them in front of you, maybe with a lot of distance between the two of you to hold it. Maybe a little closer to see how close you want to bring that image of the other. And just let them be there. Just having either their image or their sense of physical presence, how it would feel to be with this person in a room, and breathe with it. Nothing to do yet. Or maybe you already notice just by remembering them, just by remembering your own challenge, that there is a change in your heart mind, even a physical change there. Isn't that interesting? Heart mind responding, heart mind quivering with it. And you might already notice some response of the heart mind. Maybe it is a little unpleasant to remember that person. Or the response evoked within you is a little unpleasant. There might be a quicker heartbeat, there might be some contraction. The mind might already produce some thoughts. What can you notice? And now we're doing something very counterintuitive. We let go. That is enough for the moment. Come back to this body, this breath, soothe, calm, nourish again. Maybe that isn't so easy, but there is some invitation to learn how to really return inwards. There is no duty, no obligation to keep that in mind. Maybe your breath can be once more this wave rolling through the body, soothing, caressing all those places which might be tense and agitated now, just after meeting that image. Maybe that is enough for you this morning, and feel very much welcome to just stay and nourish the body. Or you bring up that person once more. And now maybe just sending this very basic wish, may you be well. And maybe rather than saying the words silently or aloud, maybe feel them, the heart opening into that radiant, caring wish, may you be well. Heart expanding. And just be aware, just notice what your mind is doing. Maybe it's getting desperate and feeling helpless, saying, yeah, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to make you well. I have no solution to offer and no plan, because I don't have to offer that, because I don't know what to do. I feel frustrated and I want to withdraw again. Think, oh dear heart mind, you don't have to have a solution. You don't have to have a plan. You can rest in this basic wish of may you be well. You don't need to solve that puzzle piece. Or maybe solutions are popping up like mushrooms in the autumn forest. You could do that. I could do that. Shh, shh, shh. Dear heart mind. No need to plan it all out. Just wishing well. And once more, the invitation to let go of the other. Maybe bow, maybe wave goodbye. Maybe telling them that you might come back later. For now, it's enough. And you almost like recoil in voice. Own body, heart, and mind to take care of. Feeling yourself sitting, standing, lying here just as you are. Noticing any effects on the breath body, the physical body, maybe on your heart mind. And very gently once more start to soothe that, start to relax that. Maybe your breath can be your companion, your support. Maybe you have to give yourself a couple of times really the permission to come back. It's okay now. It's okay now. It's not of support. It's not of any help to linger and to create co-suffering. This is the time to soothe this body, heart, and mind. Maybe not having a solution, not knowing how to help has created some agitation, some pain within you. So breathe there. There is something to take care of. Your own feelings of helplessness and overwhelm are something to take care of. Now my invitation is to feel once more the whole body sitting, standing, lying here, wherever you are. Maybe pressing the feet a bit into the floor or the mattress. Maybe shifting a little bit the weight on the cushion, on the chair, wherever you're seated. Noticing your body stretching, moving, maybe yawning, maybe sighing. And then very important, when you open up the eyes, locate yourself in the room, just look around, take in where you are right now, where you are sitting, where you're present in the room, so that you fully arrive back. Okay. So this was my invitation, how to start a compassion practice for others. You might have noticed that it's very gentle, very slow, and very much based on this idea of hanging in the big toe and then coming back. This coming back movement, I find it so important. I find that when I work with caregivers of any sorts, teachers, nurses, parents, that it's this coming back movement, which is something which can be really challenging, to let go for a moment of the other, of caring for the other, and to nourish and to soothe and to care for this heart right here, and that we can learn this compassion as this pendulating movement towards you, opening up in compassion, noticing when the vessel becomes too small, coming back, nourishing, soothing, calming, and moving towards. And the more agile and the more fluent we become in this movement, the less of a burden compassion will be, because we're less trapped. We're less trapped in this state of co-suffering. We can allow ourselves to go in, and we can allow ourselves to come back. And none of that will be reactive and impulsive, but it will be a conscious choice of what is necessary, what is appropriate right now. Okay. Now is the time for you to ask questions, to reflect and share upon the practice and maybe what I said today. The list of entanglements was by no means conclusive. There will be other feelings which come up. So please feel free to share with me. And I had one question I wanted to touch upon from yesterday, which I find very important. Someone wrote, when under pressure or on a high level, I tend to put guilt on beloved or closed people, and going through these stories in my mind over and over again. Would you say there is a lack of compassion for myself at the source of this? What kind of practice could help with this? And I love this question. And I give huge props to the person who asked it, because we often see this as not such a lovely trait about lovely characteristic about ourselves, knowing that under pressure we're putting guilt and stress on others. And actually many of us will do this, to say, oh, there is suffering, and what does our mind do? Very interesting. And of course part of our mind's attempt to solve the puzzle of life is saying, hey, if there is a suffering, there needs to be someone who is responsible for this suffering. And some of us move inwardly and saying that is my fault. And some heart minds will lash outwardly and say that is about you and you caused that. And just noticing this movement of the mind saying, when there is suffering, there is someone responsible. And that would make it so beautifully easy in our lives to say, well, if you change that, I will be fine and everything is okay. Think, well, if it would be just that simple. Sometimes, of course, there is something to work out in our relationships, but much more often, is that the pang of the suffering is causing confusion, is causing agitation, is causing anxiety, is causing anger, and we lose our clarity. And we lose our clarity and we lose our ability to see how many causes and conditions work together. You participating, I'm participating in this suffering. The circumstances are participating in this suffering. Some of it might just be aspects of life which all of us have to go through, and we can't disentangle this heap. So a lack of compassion can cause this putting guilt on the others, because the lack of compassion is a lack of containing that pain for a while, saying, wow, this hurts. Whether I find it justified or unjustified, whether I find it good or not good to experience this hurts at the moment, and it can hurt deeply. And can I turn to that and acknowledge that? Yeah, and that will prevent me from lashing out inwardly or outwardly, to just acknowledge, yeah, that is painful. Yeah. And when I sit with that and I can fully acknowledge and recognize that this is painful, the impulsiveness usually goes away, the reactivity usually goes away. And when clarity comes back in, I can say, this is your contribution to this situation, that is my contribution, that is life circumstances. And what might be the small abilities we have to do something about this compassion, but we need this clarity. Yeah. So compassion is actually a safekeeping of the heart mind, because it takes the reactivity out of our behavior. Great. So let me see your questions for today. James is writing, is it right that in order to have compassion for others, we need to be able to practice good self-compassion? As a nurse, I feel we're conditioned to care for others without good self-care and compassion. Yes, James. Thank you very much for asking this. I would say, yeah. They are so closely interrelated. As a nurse, you might be in my sister is a nurse, so I speak from a bit of at least second-hand experience. You are in touch with so much suffering all day long. Like people are usually in hospitals and hospices and other institutions because of their suffering. So there is an inevitable contact with suffering all of the time. And as I said yesterday, I would say I imagine it to be almost impossible to be in close empathy with every single patient all of the day. Yeah. And I would very much differentiate between a heartfelt given care, yeah, which is what can I do for you? Yeah, what can I do for you? What are the best things I can do for you to support you with your suffering, based on the time I have, based on the conditions in the hospital, for example. They are not under our decision-making process either. What can I do for you under these circumstances? And then being truly aware that every human encounter we have leaves a resonance in our heart minds. And that in such circumstances, we won't have enough time always to almost digest that. Yeah. So I find it very naturally not to open up fully every time you come and meet someone. Yeah. But stay on this more sustainable level of gentle care. Yeah. Gentle care, caretaking there. And at the end, some encounters will leave their impression, and there needs to be soothing, and there needs to be calming, and there needs to be nourishment for this heart mind of yours, and all nurses and caregivers. Yeah, I had this conversation with kindergartners. I had this conversation with parents. We need to be able to let go of the role and come home and fully soothe, care this heart mind. Else, this role will be a marathon we can't run properly. Any responses, James? Very much welcome. Thank you for asking. So Anita is writing that this has been very gentle and very rich, much to work with. So I was wondering if you offer any retreats or online courses on this. That's a lovely question, Anita. I was wondering whether we should do a deepening of the Brahma Viharas, maybe as an online retreat in autumn. That would be an idea we could play with. Yeah. Tilly is writing that in reflection with illness, her understanding of compassion has changed, just accepting the presence of suffering without turning away or judging, blaming, putting a hierarchy, and showing care by responding in a way that doesn't add more suffering. Lovely, lovely. Just want to underline that last sentence. Responding in a way that doesn't add more suffering. Sometimes this is, the most important thing we can do is to say, there is this suffering. I don't know whether I can make this underlying suffering go away. Yeah. And our heart minds and our mindful, our cognitive mind will always try to figure out, how do I get rid of this illness? And if we're chronically ill, our heart minds can run themselves into a rut, because there might be nothing we can do about getting rid of that. Yeah, nothing. But our practice opens a second question, to say, well, am I contributing? Am I adding to that? Yeah, am I adding to that? We might run into conflict with our loved ones, and we might not be able to solve that conflict right now. Yeah, we're in a state of vagueness, uncertainty. How will this relationship continue? This suffering is right there, and you can't do anything about that at this very moment. Yeah. But what you can do is to say, okay, in what ways am I adding to that right now? By the way I pay attention, by the way I think about things, by the way I relate to myself. Am I adding? And is there something I can reduce? And that would be so compassionate and caring. Yeah. So sometimes even the attempt to work it all out, yeah, what might seem so close to compassion is just adding stress and pressure on the system to allow to say, yeah, it's yucky, it's confused, it's hurting, it's unpleasant, and it's all there. And not trying to make that go away can be very much an act of compassion, because it's not ripe, it's not mature, it's not the time and place. Anyone else wanting to share something or contribute something? Yeah, Heidi wrote that hearing about those entanglements with compassion was very helpful. And I hope you can remind them, and as something which your heart mind does in order to keep you safe and protected and nourished and stable and organized in this world. And our heart mind does a lot of things out of a good intention, and it ends up in a mess. Yeah, sometimes it's bouncing. Oh dear, heart mind. We've worried about this before, and we know where this ends. We're going to try something else. Give me permission to, for at least 5 minutes, just to breathe, and we see whether that works. Yeah, sometimes I cut little deals with my heart mind and saying, well, let's try something different and fresh this morning. If it doesn't work after 10 minutes, you're fine to go on worrying. Yeah. But to see them actually as programs, sankhara, the Buddha would say, with which the heart mind tries to solve, tries to fix, tries to relate. Yeah, even the anger, even the frustration is something our heart mind does to keep us safe or keep the other safe. Yeah, sometimes we have these visions of, well, if I can just make the other do what I know is right, everything would work out, and a wave of agency comes through and saying, slowly, slowly, slowly. Yeah, that is just the heart mind imagining, dreaming about how we quickly could solve this all. Yeah, and saying slowly with that. There is way too much self-righteous energy in that at the moment to be something healthy and supportive. So, what else can we see? Okay, I'm going to share with you what you're going to do tomorrow. And I tried to figure out with George what went wrong this morning, so that so many of you had challenges with the link. I hope we can clarify by tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk about self-compassion, other compassion, this either or, which our self-help literature sometimes puts us in. It's not an either or. There is no duality, and we don't need to worry and figure out in the morning, is it a self-compassion day or a other compassion day? Yeah, and do I need to decide whether I'm going to be that selfless person who's practicing for the others, or am I going to indulge myself in self-compassion? Yeah, it's much more fluid than this. This duality doesn't have to be there. And we're going to practice with this as well, to have this maybe more inclusive perspective on compassion tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to being with you tomorrow morning. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your patience with the technique as usual. And I'm happy to be with you tomorrow. And now just a question popped up, and thank you, Pauline. I will include that tomorrow in my answer. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you.